Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey podcast, the podcast where me and my brother talk about English ice hockey, specifically the NIHL. And we don't have Dan today, but we've got our dad joining us. How are you doing, Dad? You've not been
I'm
on
good, thank you,
since the
fellas.
predictions.
Say that again.
You've not been on since the predictions.
No, no. I wonder whether there's a reason for that.
No. It's good to have you on. Charlie, how are you doing? A different weekend this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not quite as happy as last weekend. Got my Tango Mango, but it was an interesting weekend, and it was great to see so many people in Romford who listened to the podcast, and I was chatting away to about three different people, so it was cool to see them.
Yeah, it just goes to show that playoff hockey, anything can happen, and wow, stuff can change in just a matter of a week. Before we get into the results, we'll go on to the news first then, and literally just been announced that Will Weldon is retiring at the end of the season for the Peterborough Phantoms. 13 seasons at the club, and the best way I can describe him is you love him if he's on your team, but you hate him on the other team. He is a bit of a rat, but he's been their captain the last 3 years. He's a really solid player, and yeah, Peterborough are going to miss him for sure. Dad, obviously we've watched Weldon. He's been in the league for a long time for Peterborough. What do you make of him as a player? Watching him against Swindon.
Yeah, he's the one, isn't he, who's always in the ear of the refs. Any chance he gets, and rightly so. So yeah, he's been loyal to Peterborough. So yeah, fair play to him. Yeah, he's the player that you watch and you just think, oh man, he's getting on my nerves, but he does the job. And yeah, he's best mates with, well, not best mates with the rep. He's always talking to them at the end of the period and sticking up for his team. So fair play. Yeah,
Yeah,
good career.
Charlie's captained them the last 3 years. Obviously, captained them to the cup last season against Leeds when odds were stacked against them. It is going to be a big loss for Peterborough and around the dressing room as well.
He's a Peterborough through and through kind of person. He's a huge part to that team. And he hasn't played quite as many games this year, and I think they have missed him. He's just that grindy, annoying player. He was good on the power play in front of the goalie back in the day. And he's really contributed to the success Peterborough have had in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons, where when we went to the National One Division, he was a big part of why Peterborough had success there. And I'm sure he'll want to be in Coventry in his final year as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Be a nice send off if Peterborough can get there. They need just one win. But we'll go into that in a bit. Now there's been three plus games, 5+ games this weekend. We're going to talk about them quickly. The first one was Zach Milton, and this actually got overturned. It was given on the night as a 5+ game for spearing, and it actually got rescinded. Is rescinded the word? He was able to play on Sunday night. Now, normally, if you get a 5+ game, you're not allowed to play the next day because Dops will be reviewing it, and they just weren't very quick with them. But it sounds like, Dad, either the referees on the night have said that actually we made the wrong decision and I think Dops need to look at this so he can play the next day, or Dops have actually just done a quick review. I'm not sure which one, but it sounds like online that it wasn't actually that bad and maybe on the night should have just been called a 2-minute.
Yeah, the positive. You talked about my predictions. I did say one of the things at the beginning of the season is some games could be won and lost because docs aren't reviewing them over the weekend. Now, if they've done that and they've deemed it, it's not suitable for a game ban. Fair play to them. So yeah, if they can do it this time, they can do it for all of the situations that are thrown their way over the weekend. So yeah,
I agree. That's because he was quite key on the Sunday as well. It meant that they could keep the same lines, Charlie. Yeah. And yeah, I think he got 5 points this weekend. So he was very key to the Raiders getting that 4-point weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that Milton's a class player. That goal he scored for their 5-on-3. It's their second goal of the night in the home game was naughty. And you got to say it. Some fans would moan in this situation saying the rules aren't fair. I'm quite happy he got unbanned because it sounded like it wasn't an unban. And I want players to play against Swindon. I want to play against the best level standard team we can. Because it's the best possible hockey we can watch. So, nope, it did go against us for once. The against everybody. For once, Swindon didn't rig it, apparently. But, I'm not complaining. Zach Milton's a class player, and yeah, he did contribute on that Sunday night. That third line caused some mayhem, and they got some two or three big goals for Raiders.
Yeah. As Charlie said, it didn't go Swindon's way that time. They did get him back on the Sunday. So for all the people saying it's rigged, shut up. Right, on to the other two. And one that we haven't seen is the James Griffin. He got a 5+ game for check to the head. It looks like he's going to miss the rest of the playoffs if this is reviewed to be a check to the head, because that is a minimum of 6 games. Dad, that would mean if he goes and is actually getting a ban, they would be missing James Griffin, Ben Solder, who's currently injured. I'm not sure if he's going to be back. It didn't look great. And then obviously Archie Salisbury, who's gone to GB. That's 3 key defensemen out of Milton Keynes. They're really going to have to battle hard, especially defensively, without those 3 guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, especially if they make it through to the playoffs in Coventry. I mean, they have got Wallace back this weekend for the 2 games. But yeah, I mean, you know, we have said that there's strength in depth within MK. We've seen it. But, you know, when you've got 3 key players and quite a few D out, then that is going to be could be a real challenge for them moving forward. But again, if Doctor deemed it, you know, that it was a check to their head, there's consequences to it, and you've got to pay the consequences, haven't you?
Yeah, Charlie, you can't put yourself at risk during, especially playoffs, at getting these lengthy bans, can you? And obviously we haven't seen it, but there wasn't actually much debate online that it shouldn't have been a check to the head. There was no, even MK fans weren't saying, I didn't see any saying, oh, it shouldn't have been a check to the head. So you just can't be doing that, especially in these playoff games.
To be honest, I do think it kind of sums up MK's frustration of the playoffs. Griffin is obviously he's a key member of their team, and I can imagine he was a bit frustrated about the results he's had the 3 games before. And yeah, it's just I can't comment because I haven't seen the hit. But if he does get banned and the hit was a deserving of a suspension, it's a frustrating one for Lightning fans, especially if they do make Coventry and results go their way. It will be a big miss not having him in Coventry against some of the top teams and against Raiders as well, because Raiders aren't going to go out without a fight, as we know.
No, them needed to win both games. The final one, which is definitely going to get a ban, it has been leaked online, is the Sisters. Now, we've actually had Sisters on. He was a nice guy, and he spoke well in the interview, but he did not do a nice play. He cross-checked Noah McMullen straight in the face with the stick. Dad, you can't be doing that. You're in control of your own stick. I completely get the face washing, putting your gloves over and having a bit of handbags, but you cannot put your stick in someone's face. And I think Noah McMullen actually did get quite a bad nose injury and had to wear the bubble on Sunday.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I did see it. I've only seen it from almost from behind, not front on. But yeah, there was some force behind it as well, and a bit of aggression. Yeah, it was pretty blatant in the video that I saw. You know, they're right in the middle, center of the camera. So I think, yeah, frustration, aggression just gets the better. Maybe he wasn't aiming for that point, but, you know, scores on the doors, it's there. He will be frustrated having come back to help Peterborough through. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what Doc say. But I think we probably know where they're going to go with this one.
Yeah, that is it's one of the worst we've seen this season, Charlie. And that's quite frustrating for Peterborough because obviously losing Sirsenis, he's banned for 6 months. Sisters comes back in. You're in this high where he gets loads of points on the first weekend. They ended up beating Leeds, and now you're not going to have him for the rest of playoffs.
It was a stupid move from him. I think he'd admit that himself. The game got heated, and he did a play which wasn't legal, and I think the Dops hammer will probably go down on him. So yeah, it's. I think from Peterborough fans, I think they'll be disappointed. You're missing Sisters, Sirasenis, and Spears going into a playoff campaign, which you really want, and a tough weekend against Hull as well, where they've got to get points. So yeah, but these things happen. It's a very heat of the emotion game, and but you don't want things like that. A deliberate cross check to the head is something you don't really want to see in hockey, to be honest.
No. I think that's it for the news, or the news part of hockey this weekend. Let's go on to the actual results then, because we had a lot of splits, but then we did have some 4-point weekends as well. We're going to start with the Seahawks, and we said last week, Charlie, that it's basically after losing twice to Leeds, it's 6 cup finals from here. They have to win every single game. That would be the final 4 games, and then the 2 in Coventry, and they'll win the cups. And they've done the first 2, Dad. They've won both games, the 4-point weekend. We saw last week that Bees gave Phantoms a really good game, but it's safe to say the Seahawks attack, their main guys really stepped up. And on the Saturday, they beat the Bees 11-5 in their own rink. And we were actually at the game a few weeks ago where the Bees beat them in their own rink. And it seems like this time they have really, really stepped up, and 11 goals. That is quite a high scoring game.
I think you boys have mentioned it on previous podcasts. I think you said it's playoff hockey. I think you probably said it about 120 times, but it is, isn't it? It is a mindset and being disciplined as well. We're just talking about the dock scenario, and you know how close these 2 groups are. You know, it is going to be, you know, who can keep their discipline and whose forwards can come up with the goods. And you know, I have to be honest. After the first week, I thought maybe Hull are on the downward slope, but they've certainly bounced back this weekend. And fair play to go to the Bees, which is never easy, and to get 11 is just phenomenal, really. So yeah, fair play. Maybe they just turn a corner again. You know, makes next weekend really, really exciting, doesn't it?
This season, Charlie, we've seen the Seahawks in quite different patches. They've had a really purple patch where they'll win 8-9 games in a row, and then they'll lose a couple in a row. So they'll be hoping that they've lost the couple to Leeds, and now they can go on that momentum run. And that is really good momentum going into Peterborough, especially because Peterborough lost on the Sunday as well.
I think Matty Davies would admit it. They've probably been the most patchy team in the league. When they're hot, they are hot, and when they're not hot, they do lose. So
they're cold.
Yeah, they're cold. That's a good one. That's what dads are for. So yeah, they needed this game. They needed this weekend. They got all of their top end players firing, and they do need their top end players. They rely on their top 6 to score and win them games, and they do rely on outscoring other teams to win games.
Yeah,
and scoring 11 goals ain't bad, and it's a good start to a very tough weekend next weekend. But I think they'll be excited. And Bobby Chamberlain with a hat trick as well, which is always fun.
I was going to mention that. I think their big players really needed to step up, because Owen Brutton and Reese Edwards, they both got called up to GB. That's 2 players. Me and Dan were saying to Dan, their squad looks quite thin compared to other teams. And then having Brutton and Edwards both going to GB, you've got Kent, who's currently serving a ban as well. Their squad's looking quite thin, but as you said, Bobby Chamberlain with the hat trick, he sounded like he loves playoff hockey, doesn't he, Dad? Do you remember that overtime winner he scored for Hull? He really does step up for those playoff games, doesn't he?
And he certainly knows how to celebrate when he gets it as well. The amount of times I've seen pressure points and Hull have scored, and it's been Bobby Chamberlain just sitting right next to the goal unmarked. He just gets into those little positions, and it's so obvious, but actually they make that pass and he's got a little dink in, and you just think, and then he's off celebrating. So yeah, they needed their big players to step up, and they've certainly done that. So it certainly makes next weekend cracking, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is a massive game. As for the Bees, I think they're pretty much out. I think they
are out.
They mathematically are out. But we've said they weren't the favourites going to even qualify for playoffs, and they haven't been the playoffs to get to Coventry. And unfortunately, they haven't quite been able to get any points so far. But it sounds like they have given them decent games. It's not like they've just not turned up. They gave the Peterborough Phantoms a really good game last week, and I think next season they can bolster that squad and really battle for a playoff spot, and then to try and push in playoffs as well.
Yeah, like they were in a tough group. They were with Peterborough, who they love playoffs. They were with Hull, who just score loads of goals, and Leeds. They're just Leeds, aren't they? So it was a tough group for them, and this year was a bad experience. So when you're the 8th place team, you're the lowest seed going into playoffs. You're not expected to qualify. You're not expected to win a lot of your games. And so it was always going to be a difficult challenge for them. But for them, it's about building experience in this roster. You got Ollie Nags coming back next year. You got Ballas and Gabai together. And I'm sure they'll sign a lot of the other younger players in this team. It's about building up some experience in playoffs, learning what it's like to play in these big games. And I'm sure next year they'll be a lot more calmer and a lot more level-headed in these games to be able to take on challenges like this a bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I still think it's been a successful season for the
100%.
Bees. They've outdone expectations, and even though they haven't won a game so far in playoffs, I think all of them should be proud that they managed to get there. So yeah, I wouldn't be too disappointed.
I would say, just remember at the beginning of the season, Gabai and Ballas, they were talked about every week, just constant. That the pairing there was phenomenal, and they've been superb this season. And even towards the back end and getting into the playoffs, they've stepped up. It's a tough one, but and they've got them both next season. So really good foundation to build on.
Yeah. On the other side of the group, because we're starting with this group because we did this group second last time. We've got the Leeds and the Phantoms, and on Saturday night, it looked like the Leeds Knights were going to get another big away win, just like they did in Hull. They went 2-0 up, and then the Phantoms just battled back, just like they do. And they made it 2-2. It went all the way to overtime and penalty shots, and they ended up beating the Knights 3-2 on the shootout. Our man Luke Ferrara, he scored the penalty shot. He come in clutch. Phantoms, Dad, they haven't had they haven't had as good a season as last season, but when it comes to playoffs, they just seem to be able to just get it done. Slava knows how to get it done, doesn't he?
Yeah, there hasn't been the consistency. I remember at the beginning of the season we were saying, that they pride themselves on their decor and he knows how to play from the back. And it hasn't been consistent enough. But when it matters, they've stepped up. Yes, with a few of the things we've discussed earlier in the podcast, it's going to put some challenges their way. But hats off. They're in with a shout next week. It's going to be, I'm sure the Peterborough fans and Hull fans are going to be, on the edge of their seat, waiting to see what happens. But it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, Charlie, they've not lost. Well, in the 2 games they've had at home, they've won both of them, and one of them's against the best team in the league. They could take great confidence. I think if you'd asked them, 3 wins out of 4 in the first 3 games, and you only need to win 1 more to get to playoffs. If you said that to them before the playoffs started, they'd snap your hand for that, I think.
Yeah. Well, Hull couldn't beat Leeds, and Peterborough done it. Yeah. And they're in a great position, Peterborough, where they need 1 win and you're in Coventry. You want to be in that position going into the final weekend. It's in their hands. It is in their hands. And they're doing this with a depleted squad. They went to Leeds the next night and they only lost 4-2 with an empty netter.
Yeah.
And they were missing Sisters, Siracenis, Spears. They have got a player, Gossip, who's just come into their team this year from, I believe, the league below or the league below that. Yeah. And so they're doing it the Slava way, the grindy way, the nitty-gritty way, the Wowden way. The guy who's retiring. So they're finding a way to win games, and if you keep doing that, they'll be in Coventry because they got to win 1 more.
Shout out to one of the players, Austin Mitchell-King. I think I think he didn't have as good a regular season as he would have liked, but in playoffs, that's where some players come alive. I think him and Bjorkley Nordstrom on that second line have been really, really solid. But we might see Mitchell-King go back up to that top line now because Sisters is out. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see what Slava does with the lines. But they could take great confidence going into next weekend. And then on the Sunday, as you mentioned, Charlie, the Knights did beat them 4-2, but it was very close, 3-2, obviously getting that empty net. Dad, we'll come on to Charlie talking about him in a second. But Jordan Boesa's really stepped up in playoffs to another level, an even higher level than he was in the regular season. He is the perfect playoff player. I think he got 2 goals this weekend, and they were 2 really big goals.
Yeah, big games. And if you think about it, when Leeds are in the league, they sometimes quietly just went about their business. They weren't winning 11-5 or whatever, big scores. They were just grinding it out with 2 or 3 goal difference. And just getting the job done. And it was an empty net, but they've got it done. They've worked their way through. They bounced back. They got beaten the night before, and they bounced back. Boyce coming through and scoring. We're seeing a few players, aren't we, in different teams who are, playoff hockey stepping up. And you just think, man, who's next for the final week? Who's going to step into the big shoes and take the lead for some of these teams? Some of these teams just need someone to take that lead and make it happen. And you think, who's it going to be? Is it going to be the usuals, or is it going to be someone who's been there or thereabouts, but is just going to step up and make it happen for the teams? That, I think, is going to be the difference next weekend.
Yeah. Charlie, I'll let you talk about him because you've been banging on about him for the whole of playoffs, and he just seems to score these big goals and then celebrate as well.
That's what I love about him. He plays playoff hockey the way I like playoff hockey played. You play hard and you selly hard. He loves it. He scored a goal in Hull where last weekend, and he just grabbed the plexi and he just went, ah! And I love it. I love seeing the passion come out in playoffs. And he's been a big asset for Leeds going in to win their league title. And he's come in, and I think he scored. I think he scored at a slightly slower pace than he did when he was at Sheffield the year before. And I think he's that type of player who will want to make that next step up, where he becomes from a very good top six player to a player anyone would have in their top line and top power play.
Yeah.
And I think that's the step he's showing in playoffs at the moment. He is dominant and he's physical. He shows it silly as well. Have you seen that video of him slightly annoying Sobchak in Hull with the celebration? He's not afraid to give it the big one and show off. And a player like him in playoffs is a dangerous player to have on your team.
Yeah, another player who scored on the Sunday is McMullen. That is one way to come back from getting cross-checked in the face. He didn't actually sell it as hard as I thought he would, Charlie, especially after getting cross-checked in the face. But McMullen, even after getting punched in the nose, Dad, or cross-checked in the nose with the stick, still gets a big goal, and they end up defending out that 4-2 lead, which is it pretty much secures them playoffs at Coventry, doesn't it?
Yep, they should be through. Yeah, as I say, the players are stepping up, and they're doing what's needed. And yeah, it is tough. I think he did have an injury after the cross-check, so to crack on and score, it's almost proven a point, isn't it?
Yeah. It is proving a point. So that is it for that weekend. So just to reiterate the scores, the Seahawks beat the Bees 11-5. The Phantoms beat the Knights on the Saturday 3-2 in the shootout. The Seahawks beat the Bees 6-2, Chamberlain hat-trick, and then the Knights getting that 4-2 victory over the Phantoms. Let's move on to the Group B then, and we'll start with the Wildcats and the Raiders. Now, going into this weekend, this was a must-win for the Raiders. If they lost on the Saturday, they're pretty much not able to get through to Coventry. And they really gave it everything, didn't they, Charlie? Obviously, we started the game 40 seconds in. Bulas gets that goal. It come off some body part. I don't know what it was, but it bundled into the net. And we're thinking, okay, Swindon are going to get rolling here. And I said to Dad, okay, right, we're dominating them for the first 5 minutes. We need to get 2 or 3 here. We didn't, and then they punished us, didn't they, in that first period? And they come out of that first period 2-1 up, and it played right into their hands, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I think we talked about players stepping up in playoffs and just making that difference. Swindon's got that first goal, and it is the guy in goal,
Ethan James.
For Raiders. Ethan James, yeah. It's almost you just want to unsettle him early doors, and we did with a goal. And we actually had another couple of one-on-ones that came off before they scored. And I think he scored and stopped it. And I think those little moments in the games where you just think the game could turn again, and we didn't make it. And then in the slot, 1-1, and Raiders played the game where they just pushed us out wide. They didn't give us obvious chances apart from those 2 in the first period. They tightened it all up. Ethan James was on point, it just turned it around. Yeah, frustrating from our perspective, but actually you can only clap and say well played for Raiders, because their strategy was excellent.
One partnership that really shone on that Saturday, Charlie, we're going to mention him again, is TJ Anderson and Leishram. TJ Anderson, I know he scored more goals than he got assists this season, but in the playoffs, well, on Saturday, it was his playmaking.
Yeah.
Two ridiculous assists. That first one, he just picked out Leishram on his own, and not many players can do that. And Leishram just sniped it. And then the second, which I want you to talk about, yeah, talk us through it, Charlie. That was just that he sent everyone in the whole building.
Yeah, TJ Anderson's just a bit overrated, isn't he? Uh, no, I know he'll be listening. That's why I said that. No, he was class on the Saturday night. That Leishram line was the best line on the ice. You see how it is. Leishram, Anderson, and Connolly. It does what you say. And the second goal they scored, which was the third goal of the night.
Yeah.
TJ Anderson had it high point slot, I believe.
Yeah.
So not near in between the blue line and the goalie. And everyone thought TJ Anderson was going to shoot. And he picks out a pass, and Rennie Mars slid already, and Leishram had an open net to put it in. And I think it did sum up our performance. Leishram, TJ Anderson, Ethan James, for me, were the three best players on the ice. They were phenomenal that night. TJ Anderson made two great passes to Leishram. Leishram was just everywhere, like he was on the Sunday as well. And then Ethan James stood on his head. But we couldn't take our chances. We weren't clinical on that day. We need to be more clinical in games like that from a Swindon fan's perspective. We had enough chances to win that game. But Raiders put on an away performance, and they played like it was their last game.
Yeah.
They played like they knew they'd go out, which was the case. And they really dogged out for that win, and they did deserve it because we were not clinical enough. And Ethan James made big saves, and they made big plays when they needed to. They scored on the 5-on-3. We didn't. They took their chances on 5-on-5. We didn't. And so, yeah, good shout out to TJ Anderson and his dad. His dad is a legend as well. I've had some funny chats with him over the weekend. TJ, I think he's a phenomenal talent in this league, and I'd love to see him in a Swindon shirt.
I think give a shout out. There was some good support from Raiders at Swindon as well.
Yeah.
In their away little corner, they certainly made them their presence felt.
Yeah.
It's one. I mean, again, you've got to look at it. Swindon had chances. You know that 4 minutes 47 seconds penalty at the end.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as if Swindon didn't have the opportunities. They just shut us down.
The way I'd describe it is we beat MK 3-2 and we really grinded it out. You'd say in the last 5-10 minutes of the game, MK really put on the pressure. We obviously got that opportunity against Raiders to try and get that equalising goal. And they did exactly what we did to MK, where we just shut them down. Killing off that 5-on-3. Sorry, the 5-minute power play when maybe it shouldn't have been a 5-minute power play, but they still got on with it and actually killed it. That is bodies on the line defending to just stay in the playoffs. Like if they'd have conceded there, we could have then gone on and scored again on that 5-minute power play. So I think that just showed how much they were playing their hearts out.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, what more can you say? You know, well, I don't want to give Raiders too many superlatives, but they did play well for 2 games.
Yeah.
You know, it just turns out they played well. I think I think Swindon went in hard, wanting to win, and they got that early goal. But just you know, that night
on another day we probably do win that game.
Yeah,
I think because there was a few bounces around the goal. I think which just didn't go on our stick and which we could knock in. But the player, as we said, the Raiders did deserve it, even though we outshot them. Ethan James, as Aaron said last week, your goalie has to be on point against in those big games away, and he was their best player on the night. So that's why they won that game. On the Sunday,
I thought I'd add quickly before we go on the Sunday. From a Swindon fan's point of view, because I do like to bring that out. We are Swindon fans. It was frustrating. I think we could have done something on that night, and to not win the home game after a big win against Milton Keynes was frustrating. And so I think we'll be a little gutted about the way we played at home. I think we rushed, we panicked a bit. I think we got in our own heads. But Romford did deserve the win on that day, and it's an opportunity missed on that day, I do think.
And it was a bit of an opportunity missed on the Sunday as well. But again, credit to Romford. I thought we played such a good first half an hour. Well, we played the perfect half an hour away from home. Glenn Billing, well, it was the grinder line. It was Josh Shaw, Reed, and Glenn Billing was centre in that line. They battled and Glenn Billing managed to force the puck in. We get the 1-0 lead going into the second. We then get the 2-goal lead and then we get a third. And I thought, Charlie, that was the best half an hour we've had playing in playoffs so far. We just took our chances, which we didn't do the night before, and we defended like the Raiders did the day before, didn't we?
We were dominant. We were really on top of that game, and we had the game controlled. All three lines were firing well. We were shutting down TJ Anderson and Leishram as well as we possibly could, although Leishram draws about 14 million penalties a game. And we managed to get past Ethan James. I was thinking, yes, we've cracked him. But Romford don't give up. No. They don't stop. And they scored a great goal from Thomas Ralph to get them back in it. Then they scored a power play goal from Jake Sylvester.
No. So we killed the penalty, but the most dangerous time, I was saying to you downstairs, Dad, the most dangerous time is once you've killed a penalty, you've killed that whole 2 minutes, and then you've got that 5-10 second period where the player's coming on the ice or they're doing a quick change. And they scored straight after we killed the penalty, and it was a really good snipe. And I know you weren't there, Dad, but you were getting the messages from me saying, okay, they're getting it back. Okay, they're getting it back. And it just shows momentum is just massive in ice hockey, isn't it? And they ended up tying the game, and we'll go on to that in a second. But it just shows how big momentum is, isn't it, Dad?
Yeah, it does. And you know, Romford, is it the Sapphire Stadium, I think?
Yeah.
It's a tough old gig to play in it.
Yeah.
You know, we've been there many times, and you think you've got the edge, and then suddenly, you know, Romford are fighting back. What can you say? It is frustrating. I mean, there's no one more frustrated than Swindon players. I'm sure they will be, you know, absolutely gutted or frustrated. Hopefully that frustration turns into momentum and a real eagerness for next weekend. But it's a bit like Peterborough and Hull, isn't it? You know, that's going to be a cracker this weekend. I mean, this coming weekend is certainly going to be pivotal for playoffs for Swindon.
Going on to the rest of the game, obviously 3-2 going into the final period, and he'll admit it himself. Rennie Marr, he made a little mistake, didn't he? He went to go blocker it away, and for some reason, it's hit the wrong part of the blocker, and it's gone in the net. And from there on, the Raiders fans, that was the loudest it was all night, wasn't it, Charlie? And that is the worst time because they are just, it's so intimidating. And the players feed off that momentum, don't they? And they did, and they got another goal, turning the puck over, and they forced the puck, and they ended up getting another one, and they made it 4-3. And me and you, we didn't even know what to say to each other. We were just like, wow, they've really turned it around. This is playoff hockey, and it's gone against us.
We made, like you said how it is, we made 2 sloppy mistakes in a game where you can't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Rennie Marr, he'd take that back one any day of the week. It was a poor mistake in a playoff game, and he knows that himself. I'm not going to slate the guy. He's had an amazing playoff.
Yeah, he's been amazing this playoff.
And he had a good game as well, apart from that mistake. And then Luke Johnson slipped over, and it cost us a goal in that moment. Not purely him, but it was a mistake. And these mistakes define games in hockey. And we know that. Last weekend, Herman gave away 2 penalties, and then they cost the game because we scored on both power plays. And these little mistakes in games can make such a huge difference. And that was the loudest I've ever heard the Romford ring. It was, oh man, I was shell-shocked. Yeah. I was silent. And that's a rare thing for me. I'm never normally silent. So yeah, it was a nervy period, but I'm proud of these boys because yes, we shouldn't have gone down from 3-0. We should have kept hold of a 3-0 lead, like Aaron said, but we found a way to get something out of nothing.
Our best player of this playoff so far, Eddie Bebris. We know he used to be a forward. He has been so good at D this season, but he used his forward strengths and he saw that the Raiders were doing a line change. And again, I think that was a mistake by itself. I thought they line changed at the wrong time, which meant that we had a 3-on-2 and Eddie went alone and he just sniped it, didn't he? He just sniped it,
Ooh.
tied it up, 4 apiece with 7 to go. And we're suddenly the momentum changed. The Raiders then gave a penalty away straight from face-off, but they killed that power play and that gave them momentum. And it was just a game of momentum, wasn't it, Charlie? And it ended up both teams cancelling each other out. Both goalies, I thought, were really, really good replying to that momentum. And it went to overtime. Swindon got a point, which I think could be a really, really big point going into that last weekend. The overtime period was one of the most boring overtimes I've ever seen, Charlie.
No team wanted to lose, did they?
No team wanted to lose. No team wanted to give up a breakaway. We saw it last week against Milton Keynes. They went on the attack, which caused us a 2-on-1, and we ended up scoring for it. No teams wanted to give that away. It went to penalty shots, and there was one man who absolutely carried the penalty shots, and that is Adam Leisure. And if you haven't checked it out already, go on Facebook. His 2 penalty shots are on there. He's nasty, isn't he? I'm going to put it out there. He's probably got the best hands, like stick handling in the league. And he scored the 2 penalty shots, which meant that the Raiders got the 2 points. Charlie, he was quality, wasn't he?
Yeah, we've been spoiled. We've had 4 unbelievable playoff games so far. And I hope it continues.
In our favour.
of course, I don't like seeing Swindon lose. I hate it. But we've been spoiled, man. We watched 4 unbelievable games of hockey so far. And Adam Leishram, what a player, man. Unbelievable. His hands are a joke. He was Raiders joint top player for me with Ethan James. He is that main guy in their attack. He's the guy they rely on. When they're on the power play, they want the puck on Leishram's. When Leishram's on the ice, they want it on his stick. And his penalty shots were good. I'm not a huge fan of it going to penalty shots.
Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of the way.
Can I go into this, Charlie? Because I was going to make this a topic. So, Dad, I wanted to get your opinion on it as well. I wanted to say, I don't like the playoff format, especially for the Elite League, that if it is a draw, that it goes to a 5-minute 3-on-3, and if not, penalty shots. For me, in playoffs, I would prefer to see another 20 minutes of 5-on-5, and the next goal goes in. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I think that it should be the next goal wins in a 5-on-5 situation, because I think sometimes overtime and penalty shots can just be lottery, especially penalty shots. And I'm not just saying this because we've lost. I would have said this if we'd have won on penalties. And we won on overtime last week. Yeah. We won an overtime last weekend against MK, and I still think that the overtime period should be 5-on-5. And I think the Elite League should be doing that as well, because that's what they do in the NHL. That's what they do in the top European leagues. Now, Dad, I get that they're only semi-professionals, and they can be really, really tired. And that's where I think the depth in the team can become so key to those top teams. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, I can see both sides. I think you know the overtime piece when it's 3-on-3. There is a real buzz and excitement when it comes down to that. I think the 5 minutes and 3-on-3 really does turn a stadium, and everybody's on the edge of their seat. So I think from a maybe a neutral's perspective, that's great. Yeah, I don't know whether I know some of the NHL have just gone on for ages before they get a win. Yeah. I get it. I think we're just used to this format, aren't we? For me, might be that you carry on the 5-on-3 until you get a winner. 3-on-3. But
I just think penalty shots, it's such a harsh way to lose. I'd hate for a team, even a team which isn't us, I'd hate for a team to go to Coventry and lose in the semi-finals because of penalty shots, which is a bit of a skills competition for me personally. I don't think penalty shots is proper hockey. I think they're part of the game, don't get me wrong, because you can get penalty shots in the game, but I'd rather see a game be won in just a normal situation. What do you think, Charlie?
Neither do I think 3-on-3 is proper hockey.
Yeah.
I understand it's a semi-professional league, and the side I can see it from is the players, they want to go home as well.
And the fans travel up really
and the
far as
fans
well.
want to go home. So I can totally see it from that side. But the importance of playoff hockey and how much it means to the players to make Coventry, for me, it's a tough way to lose, either in 3-on-3 or penalty shots, because it becomes about who's got the quickest player on the ice, and 3-on-3 is a bit better than penalty shots. But I don't want people to see this as coming across salty. Raiders deserve to win.
Yeah, they deserve to win.
They won the penalty shots. They won the flip of the coin. We had our luck the other week when we won in overtime. So it's one of them things. But for me, especially in Coventry, I understand if you want to do 3-on-3 in the group and penalty shots. I'm fine with that. I'm not moaning. Yeah. But in Coventry, for me, you have to have 5-on-5 to decide the winner, because all's on the line, and then you're going to win it on a 3-on-3 penalty shootout. Imagine losing the playoff final to penalty shots.
Yeah.
It feels so cruel. But it's not something I'm going to cry about. We got a point, and it was an important point. And to be honest, if you had said to me, you get 1 point in Romford, would you take it? I'd say probably.
Yeah. In the position we were, where we're 4-3 down, me and Charlie went, oh my goodness, I'd do anything for a point right now. And we did end up getting a point. Obviously, it's gutting we didn't get to. And I know Charlie said it. I want to make this clear. We're not just saying this because we've lost on penalty shots. I've said this for such a long time. Even when Bobby Chamberlain scored that overtime goal against the Peterborough Phantoms in overtime, I still thought I'd be a bit if that was my team, because it's not proper hockey 5-on-5. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, we'll get away from that. The Raiders got the 4-point weekend. They've kept their playoff hopes alive. And they've just shown what a team they can be. And that was flashbacks to the Raiders of last season when they were in playoffs. So they have fought back into it.
That's in a tough position to say as it is. Swindon Wildcats are now got to work. We got to find a way, boys.
We'll go on to this in a bit, Charlie. We'll review the last game, and then we'll talk about the outcomes and what can happen next week. So the final game was the Lightning versus the Tigers. And on the Saturday night, the perfect place for the Lightning to bounce back at home, where they've won 25 in a row at home in the regular season, but they get 2 losses in a row, Dad. The Telford Tigers beat them 6-3, and Brad Day makes 56 saves on the night. That is, again, another perfect playoff away performance, isn't it?
It is. I sometimes liken, when we played MK in their stadium, it's sometimes like you're playing like the Man City of Man City of Premier League. They're going to have the possession because they've got the quality to hold it. How many times did we see Milton Keynes keep the puck in our zone, and you can't get rid of it? So they're going to have the possession, but you've got to be strategic to try and stop them coming into the slot, into the zone, and we did that really well. Telford have done that as well. I mean, they've scored 6. I mean, there must have been.
There was an empty net.
They still scored 6, haven't they? That's good for the goal difference. So, I do think, I think Milton Keynes on power plays, I think they've missed Wallace.
Yeah.
The playmaker there. But again, strength in depth, you would expect the team to be able to move up. They've got quality players there, haven't they? Venus and Herman and all sorts. So, surprising, but fair play to Telford.
Charlie, it just shows the difference between the regular season and the playoffs. I think we were speaking to Liam Morris, and he said, "Go on, what did he say to you?"
I believe he said playoffs is when you see if they're men or boys.
Yeah,
and obviously I've rated a lot of the Milton Keynes players very highly.
Oh yeah.
But they just haven't been themselves in playoffs. They haven't quite turned up this year, and but they're not out.
They're not out now.
They're not out. They still got a chance. That point in Swindon was big, but they've just not been themselves this playoffs. They haven't really hit Milton Keynes levels. They're normally so good at home, and I don't think they were bad against Swindon in either game, and I said that, but it sounds like they had their worst performance of the playoffs on the Saturday night against Telford.
Yeah.
They went 5-1 down, which is rough against Telford. They didn't do particularly well on that night. They're going to be the first to hold their hands up. And
As for Telford though, another player who stepped up massively again on that Saturday, Jesse Sutton. 5 points in Milton Keynes after smashing it the weekend before against the Raiders as well. He's dad. You talked earlier about players just stepping up in that
Yeah.
playoffs and becoming themselves. Jesse Sutton's one of them players. He's arguably been the player of the playoffs with the amount of points he's scored and just stepping up.
Yeah, he has, and he's again, maybe there would have been questions, or not producing as much in the league situation, questions raised, but like Lasham, suddenly in the playoffs, he's stepped up 2 or 3 levels, and actually one player can't do it on their own. The team are there to support, and the lines are there to support, and fair play. You've got to hand it to. I was just intrigued because last year I think who was playing for Telford in the league and in the playoffs wasn't Herman playing for Telford?
Oh yeah, it's Herman.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So it's Telford going over to MK. So
it is. Well, and you got to give credit to Tom Watkins as well. Charlie, Tom Watkins. We listened to his interview. He just seems so technically just gifted as a hockey coach. Obviously, he's played as the player, but he knows that they're not as good as Milton Keynes on paper, but they just got it done because it's about a team performance, and it seems like every single player has bought into the way he wants to play in playoffs.
He loves playoffs, Tom Watkins, as a Telford coach. And you got to remember, they did Milton Keynes last year. They found a way to beat Milton Keynes in Milton Keynes last year. They beat them 2-1 in their own rink. He's a very, very tactical, clever coach. And I think and one of the best in the league. I can't give Tom Watkins enough praise. And I do think it does come back to Tim Wallace missing was a big part for MK, and he is a huge part of being on that bench and coaching the team, and as a player as well. I think he plays a huge part for Milton Keynes, and not having him over 4 games over the playoffs, I think it played its toll on them. I do think not having Tim Wallace on the bench was a big thing, and it's definitely been a miss. And I don't think Milton Keynes have quite been themselves over the playoffs. They're better than this. They are better than this, but teams have upped their game. Swindon played the best weekend of our season last weekend, not so much this weekend. And Telford played one of their best away games of the season. So it shows you have to be at your very best to beat Milton Keynes. But
as you said, though, they've still got a chance, and that's what this 6-game system does. If you do have a bad weekend, well, they've had 3 bad games, which really they shouldn't really have a chance, but they still do, because on the Sunday, Dad, they got the 4-1 victory. And after all the pressure, after everyone talking about their own fans, not going against them, but being very criticizing the players, they end up getting a really big 4-1 victory away in Telford.
Yeah. I think this side of the playoffs is fascinating, isn't it? Because no one team has taken the ball by the horns and said, right, after week 2, we're there. There's so many different permutations, and you credit where credit's due. Gone back down to Telford and got the 2 points to bolster their total to 3, and it's almost, in some senses, it could be in their hands now.
They've stopped Telford getting a point as well. They did it in regulation, and the guy who stepped up, Charlie, again, and he's been there in every single big game for Milton Keynes. He was in our semi-final. He scored a couple big goals. In the final, he scored a hat-trick. He scored last night in the game they won. Tom's Rutkiss. He's another one, Dad. He's a big game player.
Yeah. He learnt his trade well, though, didn't he, at Swindon? But he is. And again, the depth of the squad is such that, you've got a player stepping up, and maybe he's the one who takes it by the scruff of the neck and says, right, come on, boys, let's move forward. He certainly did on the Sunday, and puts them in a better position than they were before that match started.
Yeah. Charlie, have we got anything else to say on that one?
The annoying thing for MK, and I think everyone will agree, is it's not in their own hands. They're relying on other results to go their own way, which is something you never want in playoffs. They're relying on one of us 2 teams to to do the double over each other. But
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been a tough 3 games for Milton Keynes. It won't be happy with their performances, but all you can do is win your games remaining and hope the results go your way. And I've seen MK fans going on about 2006. I wasn't really much of a thing by then because I was only 1 year old. But apparently, Milton Keynes did the miracle and ended up winning the playoffs that year after losing their first 3 games.
Yeah,
so
I did see that as
possible.
well.
But
yeah, it is
I
possible.
probably don't remember back then because
No.
I'm a little young.
we hadn't been introduced to hockey at that point. Right, let's go into next weekend. All of the possible outcomes, what can happen, which teams can go through. Let's start with the easier group, which is pretty much basic on which teams can go through. Obviously, the Bees, they're not able to go through. They've had a really good run this season, but they could just give it. They're all against the Leeds Knights now next week, and that's who they've got next week. The big one, though, which we've got to talk about, it is probably the biggest weekend for the two teams to get to Coventry, and that is the Phantoms versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks need to win both of them, Dad, to get to Coventry. But the Phantoms only need to win one of them, and that means it's guaranteed to be the Phantoms and the Leeds Knights. So how do you see that one going? I know I've just put you on the spot there, but the Phantoms and the Seahawks, how do you see that one going?
I think Phantoms will get something this weekend.
You reckon?
I know it's going to be tough depending on DOPS and all that kind of stuff, but I just sense that they're going to get something. But yeah, if you're gonna push me, I'd say I think Phantoms are going to get something and get a playoff place.
I think it's key, Charlie. Did you say that the Phantoms have the Seahawks? Oh, wait, what's the order of the home and the away game? I know you said it to me earlier.
The Seahawks play at home on the Saturday and away on the Sunday.
Okay, so they've got to win that Saturday game. They have to win that one, and I do think they will get that one job done. They are really good in their own rink. It's that Sunday game, isn't it, Charlie? Because the Phantoms have been really strong at their rink. Can you see the Seahawks getting that victory on the Sunday? And they can take it to overtime, and imagine that. Imagine it goes to overtime in that Sunday game, and it's the winner goes through on the unfair overtime penalty shot rule, which we think.
I think the Seahawks are going to do it.
Wow. Okay.
I think losing sisters was a big thing.
Yeah.
I do say it how it is. I think Peterborough are missing a lot of players, and I shouldn't really be doubting Peterborough when it comes to playoffs. They find a way. But I think the Seahawks know how to score, and I think Seahawks having that home game first is a big deal. I think if they can win on that Saturday night, they bring that momentum of 3 wins in a row to Peterborough, and then it is literally like a playoff final game to see who gets to Coventry.
Yeah.
So, it's a 50-50 coin toss, but if I had to push again, I'd go for Hull.
I'm with you. If I had to pick one, purely because they haven't got sisters, and obviously missing Sir Ennis, I do think the Seahawks will do it. But if there's any team to prove us wrong, it's Peterborough in their own rink against all the
Will
odds.
Weldon. They've got the Will Weldon.
Yeah, they'll be playing their hearts out for Weldon as well. I'm sure they will, to get in one last spout at Coventry. We don't really need to speak about the Bees and Leeds. Charlie, you did say
Leeds do have to. There is a possibility Leeds can get playoffs. If Hull win both and Peterborough lose in overtime. So if Hull win both in overtime and Leeds lose both against Bees in regulation, we will see Leeds Knights out of the playoffs.
Come on, Bees! Come on, Bees! That would be some upset, wouldn't it? If the Bees would do that. But I was going to say, Charlie, you said that the Bees are going to win one of the games, so I could definitely see the Knights resting if they're guaranteed to get top, because they only need one. Oh no, Peterborough could win both and still get top. Actually, no, Leeds do need to win both to get top, so I do expect Leeds to win both of them. Let's move on to our group then, because there's so many possible outcomes for this. Now, the obvious one is Swindon win one, Telford win one, Telford and Swindon both go through, and they're both. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Swindon win one, Telford win one, and MK have to win both, or they can win one each. So if each team wins one in that group, it's Telford and Swindon who go through. If Telford win both and Raiders or MK win, there's so many different things.
For me to explain them,
Go on, Charlie.
All right, I'll quickly rattle through them all. If MK win both and Telford win both, or Swindon win both, so MK have to win both, and one of Swindon or Telford has to beat each other twice for Milton Keynes to go through. Yeah. For Raiders to go through, they have to win both their games, and they are pretty much in Coventry unless there's loads of overtimes.
Yeah.
Then for Raiders also to go through, Telford could win twice, and MK and Raiders could split it, and that would mean Raiders go through. Yeah. And then for Swindon to go through, if MK win on the Saturday and we win on the Saturday, we are in Coventry. Then it would be down to Telford to win as well, because Telford have to win one game pretty much unless magic happens to qualify for Coventry, or they have to get an overtime. So yeah, there's many different possibilities. There's no point going through every single one. Yeah. But the key thing is if any team wins 2 bar MK, they're most likely going to qualify.
Yeah, I think the key thing is it's done on head-to-head as well. I'm not sure what it is after head-to-head if you've won one apiece. So the key thing for Swindon is, well, we need to win on the Saturday. Well, ideally, we need to win both games and we're in Coventry. But if we win on the Saturday and lose on the Sunday, we need MK to win just one of the games. So Swindon could go through to Coventry. If we won on Saturday and MK win on their home game on the Saturday, Swindon are through to Coventry because we've beaten Milton Keynes twice, and the maximum Milton Keynes can get is 7, and we beat them on head-to-head. I think that's how it works. So as a Swindon fans' perspective, which we all are, we're hoping we can get both and we can top the group. But, Dad, this is actually massive for Telford because they need to get one win. They need to get one win.
Ideally, you can do it on an overtime.
Yeah, they can, but ideally, they do need to get one win this weekend. Otherwise, all that hard work they've done in the first 4 games, it could go to nothing.
Yeah, same with us. It's interesting, isn't it? You look at two second and third place in the league.
Yeah,
MK and Swindon. Neither team were at playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And we were second and third last year or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah. So it's I think, you can look at the different permutations, and I'm sure the coaches are just, they've got to be, put the blinkers on and say, we've got to go out for the victories here.
Yeah.
On the Saturday. From Swindon's perspective, we need those victories Saturday and Sunday. We need to be back in that in with the mentality that we had when we played Milton Keynes. Yeah. Is Jamie Smith back, or is he still out on?
So Jamie Smith is going to be out of. He's not going to be able to play for us because he's playing with GB.
Yeah. So we've just got to get back to that winning mentality.
Go on, Dad.
Where do I think this is going to go? I think Swindon are going to push the boat out this weekend. Yeah. I'm going to say it. I think they're going to push the boat out. They've got to. Yeah. We've got a couple of players who are finishing. You mentioned about the Will Weldon effect. We've got a couple of players who are finishing their careers.
Yeah, you're right.
Tomorrow, this weekend, Whitfield and
Cowley.
Russ Cowley. So we've got to push it, and we've got to take 3. We've got to take 3 goals to go 3 up, and we've not got to let Telford get back in. So I think Swindon. Who do I think on the back of that? I think MK could sneak it. I think they could.
As you said earlier, Charlie, it really depends on the Telford Swindon games for Milton Keynes and Raiders. Well, for MK especially. MK, if so on Saturday, if we win and MK win, MK will be begging for us to beat Telford on that Sunday. But I'll be honest, I don't think the Raiders are going to make it easy for them this weekend, especially because Raiders pretty much have a full-strength team. Yeah. But as you said, there's so many different factors, but Wallace will be back. Wallace is back this weekend, so that could be big for him, Charlie. Charlie, how do you see it going? And then I'll give my predictions.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. I thought I'd bring this up as a Swindon fan because I think it's interesting. If MK win on the Saturday night and Telford win on the Saturday night, Telford are through, and they are definitely top of the group.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying, and I don't know whether Telford would do this or not, but would Telford, and even if Raiders win on that Saturday night, if Telford win on the Saturday night, they are top of the group.
They're top of the group because they beat Raiders on head-to-head as well.
If Telford win on the Saturday night, they're top of the group and no one can stop them. All I'm saying is it wouldn't shock me if Telford decided to play Matty Blore or they decided to bench some players or rest some players. Because if Swindon went into the final game of the season with a must-win mentality because we have a chance of making playoffs, and Telford knew that they were top of the group, I think there's a mentality difference there. So for me, I think Swindon and Telford are going to go through. I think we'll split it 50-50, and I actually think MK will win both. But this group is mental. So I think Telford will top the group and Swindon will finish second. And I think we'll win on the Saturday night and MK will win on the Saturday night. And then we'll go into the next night and Telford will take the win on the Sunday night.
You think Telford will win on the Sunday then to top the group?
In their must-win game, I think they'll win that game. Yeah.
That it will be an interesting one, wouldn't it, Dad? Because if, say, what we've been saying does happen where MK do win and Swindon do win on that Saturday, Swindon know they're through, and it's literally all on Telford. And again, but then Swindon still have that first place to play for. So I'm going to make my prediction. I think Swindon will get through. I think they will get the job done at home on Saturday. And I can't see MK losing 3 in a row at home. I know we haven't seen them losing once at home in this playoffs. If you'd have put money on a team to win 3 times at home, you'd put it on MK. But I really can't see with Wallace back, MK losing at home. I know we're doubting the Raiders again, which we probably shouldn't be doing because if Raiders win both, it's then we have to win both of them, and it's like, oh my goodness!
I just don't want to come on the podcast next week Monday and Swindon aren't at Coventry. I'll say it how it is. I don't want that podcast, and I know everyone watching probably does want that podcast. So.
If that happens, just put Dan. When Dan's back,
Dan will just speak for 45 minutes.
To be honest, I deserve the jip if it happens. I say how it is. So, best of luck to every team this weekend.
I think one of the key things we've seen it in all the games in the playoffs so far, or most games. Do you know what? It's going to be discipline. It's going to be discipline of the teams as well. We've seen, when we played MK, we've just seen sometimes that the heat of the moment. Something happens, a player has to leave the ice. We've seen it in other games. And I think, that is going to be critical in those first couple of periods of the game, that teams can hold their nerve. And when they want to put that hit in and they're really, they've just got to, you don't want to hold back too much, but, it's playing on the edge and not tipping over. And I think that's going to be crucial for all the teams in our group. Because everybody is fighting for that victory on Saturday.
I just want to put this out there. I hate making predictions. I'm sure you two are the same. When you have to rule a team out, because we don't want to rule a team out and say you're not going to do it. But if we have to pick one, we have to pick one. That's the whole point of predictions. We're not saying you're a bad team or anything. We're not saying that. No. But I think Swindon will get through, and I think MK will win on that Saturday. And it's all on that game between Swindon and Telford on Sunday. And I'm going to stick with it. I think Swindon are go top, and I think Milton Keynes are going to go through. I think we're going to beat Telford twice, and I think Milton Keynes are going to... Oh, I don't know, actually. No, I think Swindon are going to come top, but I think Telford will go through because Milton Keynes lose on the Sunday. There we go. I'm going to make that. I'm probably going to be completely wrong, but if I had to make one, there we go. I'm just going to say that. Sorry, I'm so bad at making these predictions.
I hope everyone is enjoying the playoffs this season.
Yeah,
I have enjoyed it thoroughly myself. Even when Swindon are losing, it's been fun. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. If you guys want to, please tweet us, please at us, and tell us what your highlight of the 2024 playoffs have been so far. Yeah. And thank you. And I think this weekend showed it to me. I just wanted to say this, so many people came up to me this weekend in Romford and said how much they enjoyed listening to the podcast and said how much they like putting it on and listening. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who watches the whole way through and listens to me just speak a bunch of junk for an hour. We do appreciate it. And I'm excited to see loads of people in Coventry. Please come up to me, say hello and listen to my waffle and I'll listen to yours.
Yeah. Again, we got, I think, 500 views on our last playoff week 1 review. So honestly, that support is amazing. And we appreciate it. Please do go follow our socials at Macca's Talk Hockey, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Dad, thank you for joining us. I think you've done a good job in breaking down some of the games.
I would just say, boys, that I have noted that this podcast, you've done less of this with your hair. Both of you.
I did at the start a bit.
You need a hairstyle like mine, then you won't be able to do it. But no, it's been good to join you. So, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a really nervy weekend for the hockey community. But in a sense, you've got both groups, and no one is completely out of it at the moment. There's still mathematically a chance for every single team to get through.
Bar the bees.
Well, yeah. Apart from the overtime, all that kind of stuff. But phenomenal, isn't it? And let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll be back again next week. We'll either be really, really happy, or it could be one of the most low podcasts we have done on this channel. But we'll still do our best to analyze and review everything. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video, share it around, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, boys.